superstitious superstitions, including astrology. Now, let us see the effect of sun and planets in the solar system on the human body. The solar system consists of star, sun, 8 planets, 5 dwarf planets, and more than 500 satellites of planets, comets, and asteroids. The sun affects us not only at the time of birth, but throughout our lives as a source of almost all the energy. Light and other radiation from the planets is mostly reflected from the sun. Gravitational laws was not known before Newton. The solar system with sun as a center was not known before Copernicus. The universe as we know is not static, but violent changes like supernova explosion, formation of new galaxies, stars is taking place continually. Hence, an astrological calculation based on static universe is bound to be wrong. Blaming fate to our failures is an art of finding a scapegoat. The science of human behavior, psychology, and understanding of the brain are still in developmental stage and are able to answer the difficult question of human behavior. If science doesn't know the answer, nobody else does. However, one is free to use imagination and make up stories, but that would be far from reality, truth, without proper evidence. Fairy tales, all of us would have heard in childhood, are wonderful, but only for fun. In our villages, we still assume people with various mental illness are possessed by demons. There are no demons outside our brains. We know that abnormal behavior is due to the malfunctioning of the brain, and that it cannot be cured not by a witchcraft but by a proper doctor. The magical shows are nothing but a set of wonderful tricks. Do you think that educated people are less gullible than illiterate? No, sometimes the converse is true. Recently in Cochin, hundreds of beds fitted with magnets were sold for 1.25 lakhs a piece. Educated, rich like doctors, professors, advocates, businessmen bought them. They were told that blood has hemoglobin in it and it contains iron, a magnetic material, so it will improve their health. The uneducated won't understand this argument and will not buy it. And even if they are rich, a Vastav expert may tell you that all your ill health is due to you are sleeping with body in the north south direction. Earth's magnetic field causes the damage, again due to hemoglobin. We know that iron in hemoglobin is not magnetic. Amulets, magical rings, and luck bringing jewels are advertised in print as well as visual media. The target is educated rich. Advertisements of wonder medicines are also aimed at them. A black cat crosses our path, and like a dead statue, we stop and wait for someone else to pass. Similarly, breaking mirrors brings bad luck. Twitching of eyes is inauspicious. Removing even evil eye, nazar utarna, adding one repeat to a gift sum, making in 101, 1001, not sweeping the house after sunset, throwing coins in the holy water as are among the common Indian superstitions. In order to create a society based on knowledge, it's important to remove illiteracy so that everyone should be able to enjoy the beauty of science. Leaders, scientists, and media have important responsibility to show the fallacy of myths and superstition. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Dr. Ripi. Thank you. It was a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, very informative and interesting presentation indeed by Dr. Saeed Ahmed Saab.
Sir, I live in Pulwama. The internet speed is so slow that I could not run the presentation actually.
It's okay. It was still visible.
It got stuck up somewhere.
Anyway,
you,
we
sir.
know the thanks of the technology which we are faced with these days. Thank you very much. Anyhow,
Thank you.
now we will. I will just play a short video of our today's lead lecturer, our today's speaker, resource person, Professor M.S. Kuru Saab. Then our moderator of the day, Dr. Yasmin Gul, will introduce him formally. He will be about to join us in a few minutes. So by the time Professor Kuru Saab joins us, I'll be playing a short video of some 10 or 12 minutes duration. Then we will start the session. Are you able to see the video?
No, sir, we're not getting it.
I'll try again.
Yes, sir. आ रहे हैं.
The purpose of life is a life of purpose. There are people who rise above the narrow confines of their individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. Kashmir has been fortunate enough to be homeland for many such people who have excelled in their respective fields and have received acclaim internationally. In this galaxy of personalities, there is a name to reckon with, a personality with national and international fame, recipient of national and international awards, internationally acclaimed discoverer and researcher, a man with a mission, a man on move, Professor Muhammad Sultan Khuri. Professor Khuru has become a household name in our society. He is a doctor with a difference who has taken his profession much beyond the realm of routine medical practice and accorded a research-based orientation to it. He is recognized as a discoverer and a medical researcher on an international level. He has made significant contributions to medicine and science. He is a physician with a mission and a teacher par excellence. He has been a man on the move who has traveled extensively to deliver guest lectures in international conferences across the globe. Born in an educated and respected family of historic Sopore town, Muhammad Sultan did his primary schooling in Sopore. During this time, he was guided by many stalwart teachers who taught him discipline and mannerism. Based on his brilliant academic records, he got admission in Medical College Srinagar in 1962 to pursue his training in medicine. Dr. Khuru graduated from Medical College Srinagar, Kashmir in 1967. He had a brilliant career record with a gold medal for his outstanding student and 9 other awards for distinctions and first positions, basic and clinical subjects. He completed his postgraduate degree in General Science from Medical College, Srinagar in 1972. He joined the Department of Medicine, Medical College, Srinagar as a registrar and then lecturer, Department of Medicine. To further pursue his knowledge, he joined the postgraduate institute of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh, Punjab, India, for super speciality in gastroenterology. It was in PGI Chandigarh that Dr. Guru learned the basic art of research in medicine and biology. His close association with Professor T.N. Chutani, Professor T.V. Chakra, and Professor Ikat were the turning point in his career as he hardened his clinical skills, learned medicine as an art to practice and teach, developed interest in research to explore the unknown. During his training period, he described the syndrome of hepatic vein thrombosis following pregnancy and published this work in a coveted paper, the American Journal of Medicine. Professor Kaur had all the opportunities and evidence to move to the left, but he chose to return to Medical College Srinagar here to serve his people. In 1982, the Sheriff Institute of Medical Sciences was established as a tertiary care center of excellence. There was acute need of senior physicians in AFC state to join this tertiary healthcare facility. It is Dr. Kuru, along with few other committed physicians, who joined SKIMS to realize the dream of the As an administrator, Dr. Kuru gave a huge impetus for growth of SKIMS. He has played a crucial role in planning the policies and procedures of SKIMS right from its inception. He held the pivotal position of Chief Medical Secretary and Director of SKIMS and made a huge contribution in academic activities, infrastructure development, and manpower planning. The period of his directorship was during the most trying times that Kashmir has seen, yet it is remembered as a golden period of SKIMS by the society and employees. He has a deep understanding of healthcare policies and has written on these extensively over the years. Professor Kuru has 240 scientific publications, and these are published in national and international journals of high standards with high impact. He is a committed researcher. A lot has been written on Dr. Kuru's research. Please know that he spent a considerable part of his income in medical research projects. Hepatitis E is one of the five viruses and the most emerging infectious disease in modern medicine. Hepatitis E is one of the major health problems in developing countries, accounting for billions of deaths. Its impact in the developed world is being recognized now. Born zoonotic disease. It is a matter of time that hepatitis E was discovered by Professor Kuru in 1980 from Kashmir. Discovery of hepatitis E brought in national and international recognition, innumerable awards, stamped his position in the history of medicine as a discoverers of hepatitis viruses, starting from the time of Hippocrates. The paper by Nobel laureate Dr. Blumberg on the discovery of hepatitis B virus is listed in the same book. Hepatitis B was discovered by extensive field studies done in so-called Kashmir during an unprecedented epidemic of hepatitis, which involved 52,000 icteric cases of hepatitis, with over 2,000 deaths. Professor Khuru did extensive animal transmission studies to transmit the disease to rhesus monkeys and showed to the world community how the virus looks like. Further, he did cutting-edge basic research work, including PCR and frequency studies, to further define the nature of the hepatitis C virus. Along with many national and international institutions of review, Dr. Khuru has spent 15 years in studying the intriguing behavior of the disease and its agents, and continues to study this intriguing disease even now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are highly privileged and honored to have with us this day an internationally acclaimed scientist, an accomplished researcher, a physician par excellence, discoverer of hepatitis E, Professor Muhammad Sultan Khuru Saab, as our lead speaker. As was requested by many of the participants at the beginning of the session, that there should be some lecture on the fundamentals of research, because many of the colleges have been allowed now to undertake research under the new education policy. Some of the colleges are being identified which could be upgraded as autonomous colleges. And even there have been notifications from the higher education department to engage in some kind of basic research at the college level. Therefore, participants were very keen to have some speaker of eminence talking about the fundamentals of research. And that's how we requested Professor M.S. Khuru Saab to discuss the basics, the fundamentals, the objectives and ideals of research, because he is a living legend, son of the soil, whom we can all emulate and draw inspiration from. His journey in research has been remarkable, and there could be no better person to talk about research, fundamentals and objectives than Professor M.S. Khuru Saab. Before I request today's moderator, Dr. Yasmin Gul, to formally introduce the speaker, I would request and invite our director in charge, Professor Mushtaq Ahmad Darji Saab, to say a few words, please. Professor Mushtaq Saab. Professor Mushtaq Ahmad Darji Saab, can you hear me? Okay, it seems there is some issue with the this audio of Professor Mushtaq Saab. Meanwhile, Professor Mushtaq Saab, can you hear me?
जी सर, अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, my participants, sir, it's really privilege and yeah, I'm hearing you, sir. Am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, there is some disturbance in the audio, but still you may please go ahead. It seems again the Professor Mushtaq Saab has got some issue with the audio. So I would request Dr. Yasmin Gul to formally introduce our today's resource person, Professor M.S. Khuru Saab. Dr. Yasmin Gul, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. As said by Dr. Geet Saab, that today we have having the privilege of having Dr. M.S. Khuru, a leading scientist, a teacher, a scholar, and a great human being with us. Dr. M.S. Khuru, MBBS, MD, DM, FRCP, FACP, MACP. Dr. Muhammad Sultan Khuru is a world-renowned gastroenterologist from Kashmir who is a researcher, a teacher, and a grand human being all in one. He did his MBBS and MD from GMC Srinagar, followed by a DM from PGI Chandigarh. He has been professor and head gastroenterology department at Sher Kashmir Institute of Medical Sciences, Soura, Srinagar, and had also been a consultant and head gastroenterology and liver transplantation, King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He left for Saudi Arabia in 1995 and returned in 2005. On his return to Kashmir, Professor Khuru established a tertiary care digestive disease center in Srinagar. Apart from excellent patient care, this center conducts extensive educational courses for the medical fraternity. The center continues to indulge in research programs related to hepatitis E, hepatobiliary parasitis, and upper GI cancer, and is collaborating with national and international organizations. Dr. Khuru is an author of more than 300 research papers that earned him national and international fame. It was the discovery of hepatitis E virus which established him as a discoverer world over. His other contribution is in the area of hepatobiliary and pancreatic ascariasis, hepatovenous thrombosis in pregnancy, portal biliopathy, pair for hydrated liver, and PPI in peptic ulcer bleeding brought him into the World League of original researchers in the field of medical sciences. He continues to spend from his earnings for promotion of original research and help the poor and needy. He continues to be a simple, smiling, helpful man, a man of truth and crystal clear integrity. With respect, regards, and best wishes for his long life, I, on behalf of HRD University of Kashmir, and all the participants here on the Zoom platform, I invite Dr. Professor M.S. Khuru for his valuable talk. Over to you, sir. Dr. Khuru, please.
So please unmute yourself.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible, sir.
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today. And I'm very thankful to Dr. Gir and Dr. Yasmin to have given me this opportunity to speak on a very important topic, that is research in the UGC Human Resource Development Center at the University of Kashmir. And I understand that the people who are attending this course are university and college teachers. And for them, research is something, just show me the first slide, please. I hope you can see the slide now. Is that okay? Can you see the slide?
Yes,
Dr. Gir?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay.
Please continue.
So good. So we are with the audience, and it's a pleasure for me to be in this refresher course in science, which is held by the UGC Human Resource Development Center. And the topic would be research, fundamentals of what are the issues in doing a research, the ordeals, the difficulties, and what should be the objective. And I'm not going to speak any theory. I'm going to take perspectives from my personal experience. And it's an important thing now more than ever. We have passed through a very difficult period, 2020, where research and healthcare and probably taking care of the sick people has been most important. But of all, the research has been so important that in a matter of about few months, we know so much about the disease and we know so much about the control of the disease. And here I took an example of 8 platform vaccines which are available now for coronavirus and how they work in the immune system, and then how will they protect anybody from corona. So more than any time, research has become extremely important for all of us, and certainly for physicians. Now, to start with today's lecture, I want to pay a tribute and a homage to my parents, family, who have educated me, taught me dedication, patience, empathy, which is very important, and stood behind me through thick and thin. For without that, I could not have conceived, worked, and walked on a hard path of patient care, teaching, and research combined trio in medicine and biology. So for a doctor, I think three things are important. Number one, patient care. Number two, teaching. And today's topic, that is the research. And also, I'm remembered of a very important, maybe a song that you will never walk alone. In the last 4 decades, I have had hundreds of colleagues, nurses, technicians, my students, and my seniors. To them, I say today, you may have loved me, hated me, or stared at me, and so many did, but you never had anything against me. For I taught what I practiced myself first and always. I never told you something which I had not practiced myself. Here I say to all of you, thank you for being with me for all these years. Biomedical research in the minds of doctors and those people who should do biomedical research have so many myths and concerns. The basic myth is that biomedical research is only for basic scientists, not for doctors. Research is a waste of time. Research needs funding. It needs infrastructure and high-tech lab and can be done only in the tertiary care. Today, I'll show you that all these myths are myths and you can go against them. And I'll try to annihilate the myths from the minds of those people who have these. Then the concern that research is something which will impinge on patient care activities and also will have no financial benefits. The second may be true, but certainly it does not impinge on patient care, it improves patient care. My concept of research is to address questions, and the doctors have questions into their day-to-day practice. Face those questions and try to find answers to those questions. And nobody other than a physician or a doctor who sees a patient has the question and also has the material to answer that question. What is my personal belief on research?
All participants are requested to please be patient. It appears that Professor Kuru Saab has got briefly disconnected. He will be back with us soon.
Hello. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you are audible as well as slides are visible.
Hello.
Please.
Oh, sorry. There was a break because of, I think these are the issues with the internet. Now, I was just mentioning that what actually we need for a biomedical research, we need acute vision, passion, aptitude. We need an excellence in doing things, and certainly leadership qualities. We should be communication, confidence, commitment, and trust of the fellow members. And what is it all needed for? To have a goal, that we give a message from the question you have asked, and we should either uncover nature's hidden secrets, save lives, or relieve human suffering and pain. Now, for doing research, if you have some other issues, some other facilities, they're useful but not mandatory, which is institutional basis for support, infrastructure and high-tech labs, funding, team support, and a family support. I'll raise some of these issues during my presentation. Now, in the last 4 decades, I have been in 4 alma maters. That is the Medical College Srinagar, PGI, SKIMS, and then in Riyadh, King Faisal Special Hospital, and now at the Digestive Disease Center. And we have been involved in a number of research projects. They're shown depicted diagrammatically here. But the focus of all this research was to advance knowledge in science and biology, to relieve human suffering and pain, and to save human lives. I've just listed some of these discoveries and therapeutic advances and international advances and epidemiological and meta-analysis studies on the right column. But to tell you, the audience is that the focus of all these research projects has been what I told you. And to list these projects, most of them have been on a landmark studies, and I try to classify them, whether they are discovery of new syndromes, discoveries, therapeutic advances, advance in intervention, and very important thing is what has been the impact of all these in our lives related to knowledge, to human suffering, to relieve pain, and to improve patient care. And I just listed for each of these landmark studies what has been the impact. I don't have time to go into the details of these, but I'm sure this is a part of literature, and anybody can go into the impact of each of these studies. The first and most important, what people talk about, which is associated, is the discovery of hepatitis E. And let me tell you that the discovery of hepatitis E has been a remarkable human interest story. That this story has revolved around the complexities of a new discovery, the missteps, and I've written them in great detail, the near misses and ups and downs, as happens with many other events of discovery in history. The story has been fascinating as it originated from the most remote regions of the world, that's Kashmir, with very hard weather conditions and primitive healthcare and investigative facilities. The story also focuses on the fact that discoveries do not necessarily require high-tech laboratories or institutions with cutting-edge research, but can be accomplished in very primitive situations if you have the basic fundamentals, what I already mentioned earlier. And an example in focus is discovery of hepatitis E. The discovery of hepatitis E started with my own extreme belief when I was just a DM student that epidemic of jaundice and resultant mortality in pregnant women in our community, that's in the Indian subcontinent and regions around, has a hidden saga, certainly not in the West. To uncover it needed hard work, persistence, belief in oneself, and honesty of purpose. It needed courage to stand on feet to fight the skeptics, very important. You do something, you'll find skeptics, and they will troll you. And you can see it even if you read the news. Whenever I do something, the skeptics are there and the people to troll are there. But while that's all, while we're all doing it, we must listen to the voice. And we must listen to the people who give you an advice. And I've done that all these 4 decades. It meant spending days in snowbound, dilapidated roads. You saw the video earlier, although the voice was not very good in the video, but you can see it on the YouTube and on my website. And I did feel the pain and anguish of the sufferers while I went into that field to do this research. It needed nights to spend awake with pen and paper to write what one believed is true and to uncover. And we have to be exactly clear what is the truth and write it very clearly. There has to be no hanky-panky about that. While this journey is treacherous, it's very hard, it's full of failures and some successes. The end is always pleasant and rewarding, for discoveries do not come without a price to be paid. Now, it started with 1978-79 from the Gulmarg and Sopor epidemic, that it was a major tsunami which happened. Certainly, I would have said that time, locally, it was just like what we have Corona now all over the world. And to meet the challenge was hard weather and primitive healthcare. So I did that dangerous decision. I went and lived in the area, strength services, and offered care at the doorstep. All my colleagues said that this is all dangerous. And it did become dangerous because I caught the infection myself along with my family at that time. The way the healthcare people now are catching Corona while they are taking patient, care of the patients. But today, I tell that those team who did not join me, there's only 1 or 2 residents who joined me. Thank you for not joining me so that I could do it alone. There was no funding coming up from any source because people thought that this is all useless to go there and stay in the epidemic area. And I had to spend money generated from my practice for several years till the international funding started coming. And to explore this unknown, there was an ingenious door-to-door survey, a classical survey which has hardly ever been done with meticulous recording. And it went for 14 years. And we had to fight the skeptics at every step. And so while we were doing that, we did a tremendous amount of shopping and selling the material. The first paper was presented in the ISG meeting in '79 in Pune, where we called that we are thinking of a new disease in this epidemic and a new virus. It just really shook the whole society. There were 4 papers which came up, one after another, in only 1 year. 2 papers in American Journal of Medicine and 2 papers in Lancet. And also I went to New York, and with the help of Nobel laureate, late Professor Blumberg, I gave a 3-slide, 3 minutes inaugural talk at the first international conference on viral hepatitis. That was something remarkable. And while this was on, I knew the buzz was to go on. The whole world was shaken that there is a new virus, which Dr. Kuru is talking of. And in the first year, there were so many inquiries, support, and collaborations. After that, I did not need to spend from my pocket because there was international funding coming. Even in the first year, 3 very important people, Bob Purcell from NIH, Konio Okuda from Chiba, and Dr. Amota from Japan, visited Kashmir, my center, and had a namkeen tea, what Bob Purcell called an American soup, and had a Kashmiri wazwan. So they were involved, all interested to collaborate with me, and we did collaborate with so many people in the world. So the end was something remarkable, that hepatitis E was filling the alphabets of viral hepatitis A, B, C, D, and E. And this was not something, this was a remarkable, and we know hepatitis E is a remarkable enigmatic agent now distributed in developing countries as well as in industrialized countries with distinct epidemiology and causes major healthcare problems in these. And we already have 2 vaccines, and one is already in the market in China, which is extremely protective against hepatitis E. This vaccine probably will be available globally in maybe in a short time, so that this disease, which is a major killer in pregnant women during epidemics, can be controlled. So this was absolutely remarkable discovery of hepatitis E. The second one, as soon as I joined the SCIMS, I discovered a new disease related to ascariasis, what I called as hepatobiliary and pancreatic ascariasis. And today, I dedicate this disease to a teacher and some of the teachers who imagined that all diseases in Kashmir are caused by the roundworms. And there was a teacher who said that even from cold cancer in Kashmir, roundworm has a role, and we should give antibiotic to everybody for anything you see in the medical arena. And also people trolled this teacher and said that he was talking nonsense, and there was so much trolling all over. But then this dedication should also be to those patients who suffered for long because we laughed at this idea and never explored the truth behind the fancy imagination. And we know that imagination sometimes can be more important than what you know. And this is what was true for this disease. So how did it happen? It happened that there was an international conference, and we had a session of ERCP in the institute, and Dr. Ohio, who has discovered, was a co-discoverer of ERCP, was doing an ERCP of a patient from Kupwara who had cholangitis. And as soon as he did a cholangiogram, he withdrew a shining mobile structure from the bile duct. There were 30 people around, and one Bihari gentleman who was a physician had never seen a roundworm, and he said snake in loud term because he thought this was snake which has come out from this Kupwara gentleman. Everybody ran out of the area, including Dr. Ayuth, threw his endoscope to me, and what remained was me, the patient, and the technician, the Kashmiri technician in front of me, and the roundworm. And this really was the first instance that roundworms can cause cholangitis and can be diagnosed by ERCP. So we wanted to ask a question: how common is roundworms in bile duct? So in the next 6 months, we did a meticulous study. We did ERCPs of every patient who came to the institute for 6 months. Even we did ERCPs at 2 in the morning because we wanted to know whether they have worm in the bile ducts, because we knew that if we wait for some time, the worm was highly motile, it may come out. Of the 160 patients, 109 had biliary disease, and 40 of them had worm in the bile duct and pancreatic duct, while 38 had stones. So we gave a slogan to the world that in Kashmir, worms in the bile duct are as common or more common than stones. This was something just remarkable. And we described this disease in great depth as hepatobiliary and pancreatic ascariasis. To know more about this disease, we wanted to find out how do these worms look in the ultrasound, because at that time, the ultrasound was not available, and we were the first in India, one of the first in India, to bring an ultrasound in institute. And we tried very hard to find out how these worms look in ultrasound. We couldn't figure it out. So we wanted to find out the expertise of an ultrasonographist, a world-renowned ultrasonographist who was working in Bombay, Himant Shah. So I went there, and I couldn't meet him because he was day and night doing ultrasounds of pregnant women. So to meet him, I paid a fees in his clinic and became a patient and was by the side of pregnant woman. By the time I entered, I told Dr. Shah, I am not a patient. I registered in a clinic because I want to meet you. So I want you to come to Kashmir along with your madam to do ultrasounds of our patients who have biliary ascaris. He says he has never seen a worm in the bile duct, but he has never been to Kashmir and he will definitely come. He came, and the first ultrasound he did, he found, this is the picture, he found a round worm in the bile duct which had a rhythm movement, and that was it. And we did a meticulous study of the how ultrasounds look at on biliary ascaris looks in ultrasound, and published in a world-renowned journal, Gastroenterology, with extremely high impact factor. And now we know how ultrasounds look at the worms look at the ultrasound, and we can, since then, the disease has been controlled. Any clinician can, and ultrasonographist can diagnose biliary ascaris. Later on, I published, although there have been about 14 or 16 major publications on biliary ascaris, and a review article which came in a book, Gastroenterology Clinics of North America, where we put all data about biliary ascaris, a remarkable feature of a disease which is only available in Kashmir. Now, the other thing is the breaking the barriers of research. We've done it many times, and this was one of them. We were involved in PPI studies in peptic ulcer bleeding, and I always thought that if you make the stomach unacidic, you can stop bleeding from an artery from peptic ulcer because it will have a clot stabilizing property. And we did meticulous studies in institute to prove that. And on a day in '97, when I was in Riyadh, I received a phone call at 4 in the morning, and it said, Muhammad, I'm the editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, and would congratulate you and your team to have made a breakthrough publication this week in AGM. And that was it. I quickly went online and realized my lifelong dream of being the first Indian researcher to be on the New England Journal of Medicine. The article was a comparison of omeprazole and placebo for bleeding peptic ulcer. It also took an editorial from two stalwarts of gastroenterology to show the impact of this discovery. The findings of this trial were a game changer in medicine and had, for the first time, confirmed a clot stabilizing effect of a large dose of PPI in the artery, which is causing bleeding from a peptic ulcer, a very, very novel and innovative concept. The management of bleeding peptic ulcer since then, at that time, which is a devastating disease, has changed so much. Now from surgery, which was the way, now it is gone to giving large dose of PPI plus endotherapy. It has and shall save millions of lives for generations to come. Appreciating the impact of this trial in medicine, this paper was discussed in the journal clubs in nearly every academic unit in medicine and gastroenterology around the globe. I'll just give you another example of what can research do is on percutaneous drainage on hepatic hydatidosis. Here we had to break a dictum. The dictum was hydatid cysts, which are so common in Kashmir because of the sheep breeding, will need surgery, and they should never be punctured, because if you puncture them, the surgeons always said you get anaphylaxis and death. So we showed by meticulous studies in the Sher-e-Kashmir Institute of Medical Sciences that puncture, aspiration, injection, and respiration can be safely done, and as soon as is shown in these 4 ultrasound plates in patients with hepatic hydatidosis. And once you do that, over a period of time, all these cysts, this is a cyst of 15 centimeters, and if you do a percutaneous drainage, in 1 month and 5 months, it will disappear. In large trials, we showed that these cysts will disappear, and showed that percutaneous drainage is the way where treatment of hydrated cysts uncomplicated should be done. The first paper was published on the technique of this intervention technique in radiology, which is an official journal of the Radiological Society of North America, very important journal. We showed that how this this can be done safely without causing anaphylaxis, without causing dissemination of the hydrates. The second paper, we showed that while we're doing aspiration, albendazole should be used as an additional therapy because it will make many of these cysts, it will kill the scoliosis and will be useful. And so that is the second thing. And lastly, we compared the percutaneous drainage with surgery and published this paper in the, again, New England Journal of Medicine. This was the second paper which came from an Indian author in the New England Journal of Medicine. And then we did a long-term study of a prolonged study of these patients for over years, and showed that dissemination, anaphylaxis, and complications do not occur after percutaneous drainage. And it is better than even surgery because the complications are less, and also the hospital stay is less. This was also published as a third paper in New England Journal of Medicine, which is remarkable. While we were at the Sher-e-Kashmir Institute of Medical Sciences, we had two instances of patients who went for gallstone cholecystectomy, and both of them died, one a young girl and one a 40-year male. And the surgeons told us that you gave us gallstones, we found varices in the porta hepatis, and they died because of bleeding from varices. So it was something which was extraordinary, important for us to find out why patients with gallstones should have varices in the porta hepatis. And we found that there has to be some relation between biliary disease and portal hypertension, which never had been known before. And to prove that, we did a prospective study in 1991 of 21 patients with portal cavernoma by ERCP, and showed that 80% of people who had portal cavernoma had biliary disease. Now, this was a message which gave to the world, which was most astonishing. And this disease started coming up as, was named as portal biliopathy. That means a biliary disease related to portal hypertension. The first paper was published in a very important journal called Hepatology. And these are the ERCP plates of 8 patients who have portal cavernoma, and they have all biliary disease. These are the cholangiograms of these patients, showed extensive biliary disease in these patients. And this disease now is coming as a major disease in patients with portal hypertension. Most of the people have asymptomatic disease, and as soon as the patients live further, they started getting symptoms of biliary disease. And finally, the advanced symptomatic disease can be extremely difficult to treat in patients with portal hypertension. And recently, I wrote a review article on this disease to show how these people who come with portal biliopathy can be managed, and the algorithm is here. We have developed an algorithm for this disease. A remarkable feature from one instance that 2 people with gallstones died because of open cholecystectomy. And we have a new disease called as portal biliopathy, which is an arena all over in people who have portal extrahepatic portal venous obstruction and portal cavernoma. As was said earlier, I went to Riyadh and stayed there for 10 years and came up back because I loved to be here back. All the year I was involved in mostly liver transplant. I did extensive studies on meta-analysis, but I would not speak on what I did in Riyadh. But here, it was just coming from my car Caprice to a classic drive in outside my flat in Gurgaon. That was the day I came back. I flew from Riyadh and I was in a classical drive. I left my Caprice car there. So I set up a center as was sent by Dr. Yasmin called Dr. Khuru's Medical Clinic. It's a private clinic. So should research be done there? Certainly, yes. It does not bar you from doing research. And this is the first paper we published from Dr. Khuru's Medical Clinic on a new disease, what's called trichoris dysentery syndrome, which was never known to be in the adults. And see, this is a Kashmiri young girl from Bandipur who came with iron deficiency anemia. And I did a colonoscopy, thousands and thousands of trichoris burrowing into the colon and causing petechial hemorrhages and bleeding and iron deficiency anemia. We published a large series on this disease, and now this is coming up as a disease, and which we published from our private clinic. So it does not stop you from doing research, because if you observe something and do a proper documentation and see the quality of documentation of this video of trichoris dysentery syndrome. And on this side, you can see the histology, beautifully done histology of the trichoris and the worms burrowing in the colon. Also, from Dr. Khuru's Medical Clinic, we published another disease that you have a roundworm, not now in the bile duct, it stays in the stomach. And while we're in the stomach, it causes unique dyspeptic symptoms in Kashmiris, not known anywhere in the world. And here we have a worm which is stinging in the stomach and blocking the pylorus and causing pyloric obstruction. And this patient was thought that he has a gastric cancer, but he had a worm which was blocking the pylorus. And we published a large series of gastric ascariasis in a very important journal, American Gastroenterology, and showed how dyspeptic symptoms can occur while we are in the esophagus, stomach, or in the pylorus. And some of these are, I have gone to the first Facebook and showed some very interesting examples of gastric ascariasis. Again, a private clinic should not stop you doing research. The next, from the same private clinic, we described another syndrome which is related to Helicobacter pylori. And this we named as nodular lymphoid hyperplasia, diffuse duodenal nodular lymphoid hyperplasia, a very characteristic syndrome causing extremely severe pain in people who have Helicobacter. And what they have is thousands and thousands of nodules in the duodenum caused by involvement of the Helicobacter. This disease was not known to be caused by Helicobacter before. And we described it and discovered this new syndrome with Helicobacter pylori infection, and did some beautiful studies with capsule endoscopy. These are capsule endoscopy images of the duodenum showing these nodules. So this can all be done in the private clinic. You don't need high-tech laboratories. You don't need to have funding for all this. And finally, we proved that if you give treatment to these people, and this is the person with extremely severe pain because of these nodules, because of Helicobacter, you treat this person, he becomes okay, and the nodules disappear. So this is related to Helicobacter. Finally, regrets. Can you do everything what you want to do? I want to tell today to researchers that you do a job. Sometimes you may not be able to succeed in what you're thinking. And one of the important things was the work which we did on esophageal cancer in the SCIMS. We did extensive work on esophageal cancer in SCIMS, and we used two centers, the Lyon group, the cancer group in Lyon, and Dr. Siddiqui at the Kashmir University. And I'm sure if we had worked for another 5 years, we would have known the cause of esophageal cancer, and would have known how esophageal cancer can be controlled and cured in this community, but not the way we could do. We did lots of work on that and got a lead on the etiology of esophageal cancer. But because of the area of conflict reasons, the Leon group stopped work in Kashmir. So we didn't get support from them. And Dr. Siddiqui left earlier. And then finally, I left in 95. And it was unfortunate that this work could not be completed. The innovative protocol we had jointly envisaged between three groups has yet to see the light of the day. So we, in research, and there are several other issues like we did work on biliary dyskinasias. I didn't want to raise them issues. Again, there we did some brilliant work on bile duct and sphincter body by manometric studies. The study did not go the same way the others have gone. So one has to be have to have that modesty in research that you want to prove something, you may not be able to do it, and sometimes you may not be correct in your thinking. So today, sir, I want to say about research, he has taught you what you did not know, and that's the Quran. I believe that nature has left major hidden and untold stories in humans and human disease. And to uncover these needs passion, hard work, persistence, belief in oneself, and honesty of purpose. It needs one to have courage to stand on feet, to fight the skeptics. It's very important, and people will even troll you and listen to the voice. And I'm sure people troll you and they have not seen what you have written or what your thinking is. They just troll you. And so to face them is very, very important because you have to listen to the voice. It asks for spending, the research asks for spending days out of the family contact in order to feel the pain and anguish of the sufferers. It needs nights to spend awake with pen and paper to write what one believes is true and to uncover. While this journey is treacherous, is hard, is full of failures, it has successes that may be pleasant and rewarding. For uncovering nature's hidden stories do not come without a price to be paid. And today, I thank Dr. Gir and I thank all of you to have listened to my concept of what research is and what are the fundamentals involved in research and what are the difficulties and finally, what is the goal. And I've tried to do it through my own experiences and untold stories, what happened behind when I was doing all these protocols. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very elaborate, informative, and interesting as well as inspiring presentation of your remarkable journey in the arena of research. You guided us through very eloquently through the pioneering work which you have done in the field of hepatitis E, hydatid cyst, then proton pump inhibitors and bleeding peptic ulcer, in the area of ascariasis, particularly hepatopancreatic biliary ascariasis, then H. pylori infection and its impact on duodenal ulcer, and many other achievements of your research life. I hope and I'm sure that it will be very inspiring for the budding researchers present in this meeting, for the teachers who inspire, who intend to start some basic fundamental research back at their colleges. So I would request our moderator of this session, Dr. Yasmin Gul, to take some questions first from the chat box. Then she may allow some of the participants to ask few more questions pertaining to this particular session only, pertaining to this particular topic. And Dr. Yasmin Gul, please take the questions from the chat box. Dr. Yasmin, are you able to hear me? Mr. Suhail Saab, please unmute all the participants. Our IT staff, Mr. Suhail is requested to please unmute all the participants. Meanwhile, so one of the questions from the chat box is, are there any post-ERCP complications for hepatobiliary ascariasis? So
Well,
can you hear me?
yeah, now I can hear you. Thank you. I was muted. So
Yes.
thank you for unmuting me. There are several questions which I can see on the written by the participants, and I will address them each one by one, maybe through the mail if I don't have time. But here I have several questions on my computer. One of them was the post-ERCP complications. ERCP is an invasive procedure and is known to have its own complications, and also which are all operator dependent. And but if you do it safely, I would say, and you have experience, I would say ERCP is generally a safe procedure, barring some complications which are manageable here and there. That if you do a papillotomy, you can do bleeding, or if you are very aggressive, you can cause damage to the structures. But if you are not aggressive, if you have the technique, and if you do it safely, I think we are okay with the ERCP. That is one thing. The second question, if I can see, is about gastric cancer. Why gastric cancer is important, is common. Both esophageal and gastric cancers are endemic. We did a very, as soon as I joined the institute, we did a very large epidemiological study. I didn't want to show you that. We did 3 epidemiological field studies in Kashmir on duodenal ulcer, on gallstones, and esophageal gastric cancer, and found that esophageal and gastric cancer both are highly endemic, probably the most prevalent in Kashmir. For esophageal cancer, we have some clue that possibly related to our dietary habits, particularly high carcinogens which come up in Kashmiri tea. And we have delineated those 2 carcinogens in Kashmiri tea with the Leon group and published it. And we wanted to do further to show cause and relationship of that. However, we could not complete it because all of us left Kashmir. About gastric cancer, there's no doubt that gastric cancer is related to extremely high prevalence of Helicobacter. And if we can control Helicobacter, if we can eradicate in the community, we eradicate gastric cancer nearly 99%. So that is important about the 2 gastric and esophageal cancer. The second question is, does biliary ascaris cause hepatitis? Yes, it can cause cholangitis and cholangiohepatitis, which is related to infection. Once the worm gets in the bile duct, there are 5 presentations which we have put up. If you look at the literature, it can cause biliary colic, cholangitis, cholecystitis, and cholangiohepatitis and liver abscesses. And so this would be what ascaris can cause. There's a question about salty. I already explained salty causes more esophageal cancer, and Helicobacter causes gastric cancer. How many Helicobacter strains cause gastric cancer? Yes, Helicobacter, it is the virulent strains of Helicobacter which are related to the pathogenesis of duodenal ulcer, gastritis, as well as atrophic gastritis and gastric cancer. Is it true that outcome of gastric problems, is it true disease and outcome of multiple gastric problems is So
Is
I
IV
don't know the question. Sorry. There was a question about hydrated cyst. I can take that, and then I can take a question about hydrated, and then I can come back to Dr. Geer.
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to find out. Somebody asked a question about hydrated. I'm just trying to find out what the question is next. That one. It's a question about hydrated.
So there is a question, does
Can we do a
What is the
pair
best
of
way
a
to treat
calcified hydrated cyst in the segment of liver? No, pair technique is only done in cystic disease. You should have predominantly a cystic disease. It should not be calcified. It should be live. And there should be very little matrix and no calcification. You can't do it, and there should be no biliary communication. I think the data or the 4 papers are published. They extensively discuss that, and if you can look at those 4 papers, anybody's interested, I can send them also. Dr. Geer, please.
Yes, sir. So there is one more question, if that I could read from the chat window. Is what is the treatment for gastric ascariasis and trichuriasis dysentery disease?
For trichuriasis, you give antihelminthics.
Right.
10 days, it just goes off. So that should be no problem. So you pick up an antihelmintic. There's so many of them available, and it's a treatable disease. For gastric ascariasis, you have to do 2 things. One, use an endoscopic treatment, take the worm out, which is blocking the pylorus or the esophagus. You see, sometimes gastric ascariasis can cause asphyxia, and we had a bride, I wrote on Facebook, how if you have a worm in the esophagus, and as soon as you lie down, the worm comes in the larynx and can cause asphyxia. And that story on Facebook is very interesting. And we saved this marriage. This marriage was going to break because the girl would, as soon as she lie down, she would get asphyxia because the worm from esophagus would get in the larynx. So you have to take these worms out, or from pylorus, you have to take the worms out. So you need endoscopy, but certainly then antihelminthics or the next way to eradicate the disease. And obviously, personal hygiene is very important. Dr. Geer.
One more question from Dr. Iqbal Hussain Qadri. How can we reduce or eradicate H. pylori infection from our stomach?
H. pylori is a disease which comes up in childhood, and around 6 years of life, we get exposed to the H. pylori, and is all related to our food habits and also about hygiene. So if we want over a long period, over decades, to control H. pylori, then probably the whole society, the socioeconomic status has to change. But there have been excellent studies in China and Japan that if you do give H. pylori therapy, mass H. pylori therapy to the population, particularly in those high-risk groups, that's relatives of patients of gastric cancer who have H. pylori-related gastric cancer, the incidence and occurrence of gastric cancer is drastically reduced. So the therapeutic is the role, but you can't do this sort of thing in a general community. You have to give it to a select group of people, what has been done in Japan. But the control of H. pylori over the years has to be related to better socioeconomic status.
One more question by Dr. Shiba Drabu is inflammatory bowel syndrome a true disease or an outcome of multiple gastric problems?
Now,
IBS.
inflammatory bowel disease is a disease which is either related to infections, like trichuriasis dysentery syndrome can also be called as inflammatory bowel disease. It could be related to tuberculosis, but the one we are talking of, the autoimmune disease, there are 2 of them. One is the IBD, and second is the Crohn's disease. Both of them are of autoimmune nature. Etiology, exact etiology is not known, but they are so common in our community. Certainly Crohn's is the dominant disease in the West, but here we see Crohn's, but more than that, we see inflammatory bowel disease, which is of autoimmune nature. It's not a disease, it's an autoimmune disease. We don't know the exact mechanism of how it occurs, either one of them. But you have an inflammatory bowel disease also related to infections, which is related to a causative factor.
So there is one more question by Dr. Tariq Makbul Wani. Would you like to say something about the current COVID-19 pandemic diagnosis, treatment, and particularly the controversy surrounding vaccination? Would you like to say something about that, sir?
Dr. Guir, you are responsible for that because when you asked me to give a lecture, I said I'll talk about COVID vaccines. And so we had to change it. I love to talk about that. The reason for that was that I was involved in hepatitis E and to bring to the surface two vaccines, although I didn't do them. With NIH, they put a vaccine in Nepal, and the Chinese group put it in China. It took them at least 20 years to say that we have a vaccine for hepatitis E. But for corona, we have a vaccine which is not only vaccines available in a matter of 8 or 9 months. And I would have shown you actually exactly how come we could shorten this period of bringing down vaccines and keeping the protocol. And I wrote an article which came up in the International Journal. If somebody is interested, they can read it. I can send this article to you. I showed you one of the slides of that article of how vaccines came up into the arena in a matter of 8 months, and what is the remarkable research people have done to bring this disease possibly under control in the next few months. So I think it needs a long discussion, but inshallah, next time when we have time or people want to communicate with me, I'll do that about vaccines. But there's no doubt that the two mRNA vaccines have never been worked with any other disease. Although mRNA vaccines are available for MERS, they were available for SARS, they were available for Ebola, but they did not come into the arena of therapeutics. And we are extremely lucky because we already had the platform for mRNA vaccines that we made it available for corona. But the vaccine which is available from Oxford is on a vector, and they had a platform of the vector. So they did, lots of laboratories have the platform for vector. And the ones which is the ICMR vaccine is a simple inactivated virus, which is also one of the platforms. I showed you the 8 platforms and the 8 types of vaccines in the second slide, if somebody can look at that. But I can give you the article of what are these platforms. And we already had them. And so we are not to work for new platforms. We just can produce the vaccine after the preclinical trials are done. And the preclinical trials, we must be thankful to Chinese because they got the virus, they got the genome of the virus, and they published the genome of the virus within 2 weeks. And I think only Chinese could do that. And in very early, the New England Journal of Medicine in January, the first article was on the genome of the virus. And this genome was circulated all over the world. And so everybody normally would have taken years or months or years to find out the genome. They did it in 2 weeks after the epidemic, which came in Wuhan. And the whole story started that the platforms were available. So all the platforms were, and hundreds of vaccines were got into the clinical arena. So I'll sometimes discuss that with your group at a more appropriate time. Thank you for asking this question outside this lecture.
Actually, yes, it's absolutely true that you had to change the topic on our request. And in fact, our request was prompted by the demand of the participants themselves. And the last question would pertain to their demand only, because most of them are budding researchers from colleges, as I said in the beginning itself. So what would be your message, as you have already pointed out that we don't need very highly sophisticated infrastructure to carry out some basic fundamental cutting edge research. So what will be your message and your advice to the budding researchers in this group? How exactly they can get going with some basic fundamental research at their college level when their colleges get upgraded as autonomous institutions, and when they have some basic fundamental basic infrastructure available for research. So what would be your message and advice, and any specific comments regarding the research in colleges, which these most of the participants are college teachers, which they can pursue at their college level? That will be the last question, sir.
I think the message which I passed on was actually related to this. Important is, important is that if you want to be a researcher, you should have the qualities of researcher. An eagle's eye, and you should be able to spend time, you should have a passion, and you should have the leadership qualities to communicate, and you should have the leadership qualities to sell your material. You will have people who will troll you, who will talk about you, who will say that you are mad. And when I went to Sopot with a long boot and went in the snow, this thing, people thought that this fellow is gone crazy. Number one. So you should have those qualities. And second thing is, you must find out that you want to answer a question. And third thing is, you must keep some basic qualities, morality of doing research, that is ethics. Never ever do anything with your data which will damage science. And if you see all over, there are about 10 diseases we either have discovered, or we have used therapeutics, or we have used intervention. Everything was innovative. And as soon as it went to the world literature, they started questioning it. And up to now, alhamdulillah, not even a single concept which I gave has been proved wrong, even to the extent of proton pump inhibitors in GI bleed. There were so many trials, and they showed it doesn't work. And we showed it works, and it definitely works. So that's the other thing. Important is, for a researcher, you don't need a high-tech laboratory. And a physician came to me, and he told me that I'm in Pulwama and I want to do research. I said, you will do research, will be published in either Lancet or New England Journal of Medicine. He said, Dr. Kuru, you're joking. I said, no, I'm not joking. Do one thing. And this was that time. I told him, get me 200 x-rays of people who have blood injuries, because blood injuries were on that time. I said, get me 200 x-rays and the record of 200 patients who have received blood. And if you do that, and if you give it to me, I can publish this material in New England Journal of Medicine, because nowhere in the world you will have seen 200 blood injuries being put to public. And if you show that, what does this blood injuries cause? We're not interested in politics. We're interested in the science behind it. How does blood injury damage? How can you protect it? And how can you prevent it? And how can you treat it? And if you tell the world, you're not involved in politics, you are involved in science, you will publish this. You don't need anything for this. The x-rays are there, the people are there. You just have to get the data. So he said, sorry, sir, I can't do it. I said, thank you very much. But I'm telling you, to everybody of you, wherever you are, whether your college is built up or not built up, whether it is high-tech or not high-tech, whether there is snow outside or sun, if you want to do research, and if you have the qualities, what I told you, and if you want to produce data and do them correctly and bring your name up, your family's name up, the name of your locality, and name of Kashmir and India into the international arena, inshallah, you will be able to do that. And if I can convert one out of the 80 people who are listening to me, or many more who would listen to me on the YouTube, I would say today I've done my job to convert one person into doing research without thinking that you need first 10 things before you can start the research. You just need yourself, your commitment to do research. Thank you, Dr. Keir.
Thank you very much, sir. It has been a pleasure listening to you. Of course, not one person, I'm sure many persons would have received that spark, which would have ignited that passion among them to pursue high quality research. And I'm sure this particular session would have inspired them to the extent of producing good quality research. In fact, your entire lecture has been a message in itself, and there was hardly any slide which did not carry a very inspiring message for the participants. So, in spite of your very hectic schedule and your engagements, you spare time for this session. We're highly, highly thankful to you, sir. We would be looking forward to have you again in future in more sessions on many other topics. So I would request Dr. Yasmin Gul, our moderator of the session, to please conclude and present the vote of thanks. Dr. Yasmin Gul.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, I am feeling short of words to thank Dr. Khuru. Such a great personality. He has done so lot of we people for the international community, but particularly for we Kashmiri. So really, I am feeling short of words. I couldn't thank him, but still it is a formality from our side. With lots of respect is for you, sir. From my heart, I am thanking you for sparing such a valuable time with us. You really delighted we people. You inspired us towards research, towards commitment to our society and all. So thank you very much. And we are hoping that you will be with us in the coming sessions also. Sir, please arrange one more session. It is a demand from the participants also that please arrange one more session with Dr. Kuru because our most of the questions remain unanswered. In the chat box, you can see there are so many questions we didn't take up to the Mr. Dr. Kuru. So, sir, with all these, I thank Mr. Dr. Kuru. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
very much.
Dr. Yasmin, and thank you, Dr. Kir, and thank you all the participants for taking time to having patience to listen to me. And I hope 2021 would be a better year for all of us. We'll see this vaccine,
Inshallah,
which
sir.
is in the arena in the West and also will be with us very soon, works, and we go back face to face, talk to each other rather than be virtual. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Professor Dr.
Now
Yasmin
taking
Gul, you continue with the participant
yes,
presentations.
sir. Yes, sir. Taking the session forward, I would like to invite Dr. Irfan Rashid for his presentation, as he has already communicated that he wants to present in this session. Dr. Irfan, are you here?
Yeah, I'm asking you to unmute, Dr. Irfan.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, you're
Yeah,
audible.
yeah, just a minute.
Please continue with it.
Sure, sure, sure.
And the next to come will be, I think, Dr. Mushtaq Ahmad Tantre. Please be ready.
So are my slides visible to the audience?
Yes, Dr. Saab. They are
Yes,
all.
these are
Yeah, yeah. So I welcome you all after a very exhilarating talk by Professor MS Khuru. And I hope this talk will also not be boring, although it is not related to medical sciences, but it is related to one of the key aspects on which basically Kashmir's economy is dependent upon, the cryosphere, which is the frozen part of water that we have and which we are often proud of. So I'll be speaking about basically the cryosphere changes in Kashmir and what is the relevance and what are the impacts. So as Dr. Khuru was saying that we need to answer a research question. And as far as cryosphere is concerned, we know that cryosphere reserves in the form of snow, in the form of glaciers that we have, in the form of permafrost, which is not so much known to maybe to the audience over here. And then the biology that these snow glaciers and permafrost host, they actually form backbone of the economy of Jammu and Kashmir. And I mean to say, for example, who will come to Srinagar city if there is no Dal Lake? Who will go to Pahalgam if we do not have Leather River over there? Who will go to Gulmarg if we do not have basically ski tourism over there? So in those aspects, these glaciers sustain the livelihoods, not only the livelihoods, but also the pristine ecosystems that Kashmir has. So as far as Kashmir is concerned, most of my talk will be about glaciers, but I'll be speaking about how these glaciers, snow and permafrost are changing in terms of changing climate, and cryobiology, which is an emerging field of cryospheric studies, what could be done in cryobiology and how significant is it in Kashmir context. And we know these cryosphere reserves in the form of snow glaciers. These are backbone in the sense that if you see Jammu and Kashmir, which is an agrarian state, wherein 70% of the GDP is basically dependent on irrigation waters. Those irrigation waters have their headwaters from snow and glacier reserves. We are boasting of something like 25,000 megawatt hydropower potential state, but these hydropower potential or our hydropower potential is massively dependent on the snow and glaciers that we have. And then, of course, these cryosphere reserves are also important for our tourism, be it the winter tourism or the summer tourism, as I talked about. So any change in these cryosphere reserves will not only affect the livelihood, but also the vulnerability of people living in the mountainous areas of Jammu and Kashmir to various hazards that I'll be discussing in the due course of my presentation. So you are looking at a map which is an elevation or a topographic map of high mountain Asia. We have somewhere in Nepal, Mount Everest, where the elevation goes to 8,000, more than 8,000 meters. But in Jammu and Kashmir, for example, if you see, we have a lot of snow and glacier reserves. In the state of Jammu and Kashmir, some of you might be astonished that we have more than 12,000 glaciers in the state of Jammu and Kashmir only. And it is one of those areas in the Himalayan arc which has the highest concentration of the glaciers. And some of which, like Siachen Glacier that I have mentioned, are some of the biggest outside poles. So normally these snow and glaciers are restricted to polar regions where the climates are extreme, but this Hindu Kush Himalayan arc along with the Tibetan plateau is referred to as third pole, owing to the high concentration of glaciers over there, massive concentration of glaciers over there. So the map that you are looking at contains something like more than 1,100,000 glaciers. So on which basically populations in Russia and also in China and India are massively dependent upon for their livelihood as well as the ecology. So this is another satellite image basically of the Jammu and Kashmir, erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir state, wherein these cyan color that you are seeing in the satellite image are either the perennial snow reserves that we have or the massive glaciers that the state is so proud of. And as far as changes to these cryospheric reserves are concerned, everybody or most of you might be familiar about climate change. These are some of the observations and the modeling results that I am quoting from Hassan et al. 2016, which actually shows that in the month of March and Feb, the region in high mountain Asia, including Jammu and Kashmir, is experiencing very high warming. What it actually translates is this February and March coincides with late winter and early spring, wherein you have a lot of basically snow and glacier cover present on the Earth's surface. And when you have climate or climate warming happening in these seasons, the form of precipitation is going to change in these areas. And the form of precipitation, what it will do is it will basically impact, for example, besides the melt regimes and the stream flows that we have, it will also impact basically snow tourism. Although it has not impacted the snow tourism in Kashmir as of now, but we have world over reports of ski tourism getting affected because the form of precipitation has changed, or the amount of snow that these mountain areas used to receive, basically these depleted. And that is what is going to basically be a cause of worry maybe in the years to come. And it is not just the global basically results of warming that I am showcasing over here. We have something like 20 meteorological stations across the state of Jammu and Kashmir managed by Indian Meteorological Department. And this is one of the temperature profiles that we have for a station, a high altitude station, not a very high altitude station, but a high altitude station located at Pahalgam, in which we have been experiencing, we have data since 1980 up to now, the region has been experiencing statistically significant warming, be it yearly warming trends, be it the seasonal warming trends, be it the minimum temperatures, be it the maximum temperatures. But what is happening is during the winters, when you have warming happening in winters, the form of precipitation that these alpine areas used to receive has changed. There are reports that the precipitation has changed. But also, if you look at the climate modeling projections over the state of Jammu and Kashmir, they have indicated that the region is going to warm by nominal estimates, it is going to warm by 2.5 degrees centigrade by the end of century, but this warming can shoot up to 7.5 degrees centigrade. What this 7.5 degrees centigrade will mean, besides melting of snow and glaciers, is we have Dal Lake, and we have a lot of invasive species as one of the basically presenters spoke about a few days back. And if you have those high warming scenarios prevalent over the region, we will have aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems basically be getting invaded by the alien invaders. And it will not only impact basically the cryospheric reserves that we have, but also the ecosystem structure and composition. As far as snow and glacier cover changes across Himalaya are concerned, I am showcasing over here one of the studies that was published in 2012 in Nature, which shows that the regions, the red dots that you are seeing in and around this yellowish rectangle is Jammu and Kashmir, and you have very high concentration of these red dots. What these red dots mean is that the surface of these glaciers is melting at a very high rate as compared to other parts of the Himalayan arc. Though there are some indications in Karakoram region that the glaciers are stable, but that is related to another phenomenon. Maybe we will discuss it later, which is called surging phenomenon. But if you look at Kashmir region, specifically these red circles that we have, these global studies also indicate that the cryosphere reservoirs are getting depleted or receding at an alarming pace. And this is one of the biggest glaciers in Kashmir Valley, that is Kolahai Glacier, located some 16 kilometers from from a place in Pahalgam called Adu. You have to trek 2 days to reach to this glacier, and we have been going to this glacier since 2010. And besides using remote sensing data, we have basically field observations and field photographs that clearly indicate that since 1962, the glacier has lost something like 25% of the glacier cover. And what recently, if you look at the long-term receding trends of this Kolhai glacier, the glacier has been retreating at 20 meters per year. But if you look at data since 2006 up to now, the glacier is receding at 56 meters, which is one of the highly anomalously high rates as far as recession of the glaciers in the Western Himalaya is concerned. And what it typically means is basically, if somebody will tell me as an earth scientist, so what if the glaciers melt? So because these glaciers are headwaters to those streams that flow throughout the valley, that drain through the valley, one of the important tributaries of Jahlim is Leather River. And we have discharged from Irrigation and Flood Control Department, now Jal Shakti Department, which clearly demonstrates what is happening to the stream flows. So if you have a close look at the upper two graphs, what I am showcasing over here is initially the discharge from the Kolhai Glacier has increased, and then it is showing after 1990s, it is showing a depleting trend. Normally what will happen is if you apply more heat to a glacial system, the discharges should improve. But what is happening to Kolhai Glacier specifically, or the glaciers in Kashmir Valley largely? So once these glaciers experienced warming, they melted at a faster rate. But once the critical mass of the glaciers basically reached a threshold wherein even if you apply more heat, the stream flows are not going to improve. And what it does is, socioeconomically, we have a lot of area in Leather Valley which is under agriculture and which is under horticulture. A lot of agricultural land has been converted into horticulture, apple orchards, primarily because government is boasting that this horticulture sector, which is currently an 8,000 crore economy as far as the state of Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, it can boast up the economy up to 30,000 crore. But what it does is it is replacing basically the rice intensive paddies on which we are dependent upon into orchards. And then there are ramifications, socioeconomic as well as medical ramifications, because of extensive use of fertilizers and pesticides. There are reports of cancers in these areas. So if we promote a policy, if we have an economic policy in which we do not take care of the glaciers, and then the land system changes, so obviously 20 years down the line, we may feel that we may have to invest a multitude of times as far as health sector of the people, or health of the people is concerned, because it might translate into, due to the extensive use of pesticides and chemicals, it might translate into cancers in the population. So what we have observed in this case is a 40% decrease in the agriculture and a 175% increase in the orchards since 1980s. But most of it is basically governed by the promotion of horticulture scheme. But also we did a survey in and across Leather Valley, wherein we basically interviewed some 200 participants, 200 respondents, and out of those 200 respondents, 32% of the respondents said that they have converted their irrigation intensive agriculture to orchards, because the flows in the Leather River or the streams from the Leather River distributaries from the Leather River have gone dry. So they have shifted. And then I was talking about hazards also. We have glaciers which have been melting, and it results into depleted stream flows. But another aspect that I want to touch over here is the formation of glacial lakes at the terminus of the glaciers. Terminus means the place where, crudely I'm saying, the definition of the terminus of the glacier is a place wherein you have meltwaters emanating from these glaciers. And if your glacier, if some of these glaciers in Kashmir Himalaya, what they have a bowl shaped topography. So normally this bowl was initially covered by thick blanket of ice, but once this glacier receded, it turned into a lake. And if this lake, basically this lake is impounded by a loose moraine material, we call that moraine, which is a debris material. And if its size goes extensively, it grows. This moraine has a capability that it can withstand waters, but when the size of the glacial lake enlarges, it can burst, and it can result into what we call glacial lake outburst flood. A similar lake, you might be knowing about a glacial lake outburst flood or an outburst event that happened in Kedarnath in 2013, but we have had an outburst event in Ladakh region in 2014, and there are basically very clear indications in Ladakh, in Karakoram region, and in Kashmir Himalayas that we have formation of these proglacial lakes, which could be potential hotspots of glacial lake outburst flood. This is one of the glaciers in Zanskar region of Jammu and Kashmir, which is called a Drangtung Glacier. It is a 32-kilometer long glacier, and we are seeing that the proglacial lake in this glacier from Google Earth has started forming after 2010, and now the lake has grown up to a very huge size. This is the field photograph of the proglacial lake that we took just last October, and this is another lake, proglacial lake in Chenab, and we have evidences, 330 evidences across Jammu and Kashmir of the formation of these proglacial lakes. And then we have glacier surges. Normally what we have is that glaciers in a warming scenario are experiencing retreat, they are depleting in nature, but there is a phenomenon, unique phenomenon called a glacier surge happening in Karakoram, and this animation shows actually basically location of one of the glaciers in Pakistan, wherein the glacier is surging. What it does is, if you look into the yellow rectangle, it is resulting into a formation of an ice dammed lake. And what it does is, there is a village in Hunza Valley, which is called Hassanabad, which is a huge village with 188 settlements, with 188 houses. And since 2018, this lake has bursted, though moderately. It has not affected the houses, but there is a powerhouse somewhere located upstream or very close to the glacier. It has damaged that powerhouse, and it has damaged the Karakoram highway, which connects Pakistan to basically China-Pakistan economic corridor. But it has not resulted as of now into any loss of lives. But yes, there are chances, because this lake is this glacier is in an active state of surge, and every spring this since 2018, it has been releasing waters, though moderately. But you never know when it will change the behavior, and it will start draining massively, and it may affect the downstream population. And this glacier, the Shishpur glacier, has basically, these are some of the satellite images in which I am showcasing how the snout of the glacier and how the lake formation has happened, and how the lake has drained over the course of time. These red dots in the downward panel show basically the settlements that we have in Hunza, and people are at risk if the lake bursts. One of the key sectors, or one of the least researched components as far as Kashmir Himalayan cryosphere is concerned, is permafrost, which are actually perennially frozen grounds, which people believe that Kashmir Himalaya does not have any permafrost area. But this is a study published in cryosphere that has basically predicted the permafrost probability over entire Hindu Kush Himalaya. And if you look into the Kashmir region towards the leftmost part of the panel, you have most of the areas covered under permafrost, very high probability of permafrost. And what it does is, effectively, for example, if one moves from Srinagar to Ladakh, you see a lot of roads being constructed in Ladakh in the name of development. But some of these roads are passing through these permafrost areas. And in a warming scenario, what happens is, you have a fate of Zojila, which gets very often, it gets basically closed because of the massive landsliding, because there is a permafrost area which is very sensitive to temperature changes or the anthropogenic changes. And when you have roads basically constructed in these permafrost areas, obviously you are putting basically people and infrastructure to risk. So it has not happened as of now, but there are reports that yes, it can erupt anytime, and then you will have basically very, very serious repercussions on the health as well as the infrastructure of the people which are living in the close proximity in these areas. Then there is a very new emerging field that is called cryobiology, which is basically the life that these glacier reservoirs or the cryosphere reservoirs support. One of the important basically repositories is craconites, which are basically dark holes that develop on the glacier surface. This is a photograph taken by me on one of the glaciers, that is Mashui Glacier, located on Srinagar Zanskar highway. And we have been surveying this glacier for quite some time for different glaciological investigations. And these black spots, what they do is they basically have a capability to trap heat. Once the dust gets deposited on the glacier surface, it turns the really highly reflective this white body into a black body. And when this glacier surface turns into a black body, it tends to absorb more solar radiation. And when it absorbs more solar radiation, that means more surface melting of the glacier will happen. And as of now, people have not investigated it. I have just taken this novel area of basically cryobiology so that I'll try to understand what is the species composition in terms of the bacteria, fungi, and the algae that have been reported world over from the ice sheets mainly. But in Himalaya, it is still a new area of investigation. But yes, these craconite holes do basically, besides warming, besides black carbon, besides many other factors that play into recession of glaciers, these are an important and remain an uninvestigated basically area of research. So I end my basically talk that we need to have more science driven policy in terms of policy making. For example, if you look into fate of Dal Lake, or if you look into glaciers, there is no policy that regulates the health of glaciers. There is no land use policy. For example, if the massive land systems are changes are happening in and across Kashmir Valley, there is no land use policy that could check it. Just by paying some amount of basically bribe to a policy maker, you are able to construct a house in a saffron field, or even in an irrigation no agriculturally irrigated area. So, and that is basically because during my brief stint at the University of Kashmir, I believe there is a lack of stakeholder academia interface. The university does not have it, and the government does not have that mechanism that it will basically emulate, or it will use the knowledge that is basically getting synthesized, and it will use it for policy making. Nonetheless, we have made some small inroads as far as Department of Earth Sciences, or largely I'll say School of Earth and Environmental Sciences is concerned, but still there is a long way to move, so that people, I mean to say, at the helm of affairs, you'll use basically the publications or the knowledge from our publications into bettering the policy or into bettering the life of people over here. And then there is no disaster reduction framework in place. For example, if I talk about glacial lake outburst floods, or the cloud bursts, or the floods, for example, that Kashmir is prone to, there is no policy as far as disaster risk reduction is concerned. And our papers, our research at the University of Kashmir can basically guide the policymakers of the state in basically framing very effective disaster risk reductions frameworks, wherein which we shall be aimed at basically bettering and saving the lives of people. And we need more dedicated researchers. What we see often in the universities is that once people pass out from the masters, they join PhDs because they do not find an alternative government job. There are maybe less than a percentage of 1% of the researchers who join university just because they are passionate about research. So we need basically more dedicated research. We need stimulating environment. And then basically this forum is an interdisciplinary and a transdisciplinary forum, in the sense that people are from diverse backgrounds. We need to foster or look for fostering inter and transdisciplinary collaborations to have a better quality of life, at least for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you.
Thank you, Irfan Saab. Thank you. It was a very informative talk. Indeed, there was a lot of information in your talk. Thank you very much. Now, moving ahead, we are having Dr. Mushtaq Ahmad Tantri, who is to be the next speaker. Hello?
Yes.
Dr. Saab, are you listening?
Just a minute. Yeah, I'm just a minute.
Please.
I'm about to share my screen. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is visible.
Assalamualaikum. Thanks HRDC Center and Dr. Yasmin for allowing me an opportunity to present this topic. I'm Dr. Mushtaq and I work in Government Degree College, Baramulla. Topic for today's talk is glycogen synthase kinase as therapeutic target. By therapeutic target, we mean a biological target, a protein or a nucleic acid, any other whose activity can be modified by some external stimulus. By kinase, basically they are part of a larger family of phosphotransferase class of enzymes, means that transfer phosphate groups from high energy donor molecules like ATP to specific substrates like protein, a process that's referred to as phosphorylation. Because of kinase are used extensively to transmit signal control complex processes in cells. Glycogen kinase, that's basically a part of this kinase, means basically phosphorylates exon, a protein kinase. This was basically named because of its ability to phosphorylate and thereby inactivate glycogen synthase. It's a very important enzyme in conversion of glucose to glycogen system in mammalian systems. This was basically the first function which was recognized of this enzyme, and thereafter it's continuously increasing. It's almost expressed in all the mammalian tissues. However, it's particularly abundant in the brain, and in mammals, it's presented by two major isoforms, that's named as GSK3 alpha and GSK3 beta. Among these, GSK3 beta is the most often investigated isoform, and hence thus received more just from the investigators. It displays a high activity in cells under resting, unstimulated conditions, and is regulated by various extracellular signals, which basically typically induce a rapid and reversible decrease in this enzymatic activity. So its regulation mechanism, they are varied and they appear to be regulated at multiple levels. It could be phosphorylation, cellular localization, protein-protein interactions. These are the major basically mechanisms, though there are some other mechanisms also through which this enzyme is regulated. By substrates of GSK3, we mean the targets on which it acts, which since I've already told that it's a protein kinase, so it's basically the proteins which are substrates. Almost 100 protein types have already been recognized, which are regulated by this GSK3. So it modulates a plethora of these potential substrates. These substrates are mainly basically of three classes. They could be metabolic or signaling proteins, they could be structural proteins, or they could be transcription factors. And thereby it controls a diverse set of key physiological processes, including metabolism, signaling pathways, apoptosis, and development. Because of it, it plays a role of some sort of a master switch protein kinase with critical roles in regulation of various physiological processes. Consequently, the deregulation or aberrant regulation of GSK3 that's been implicated in the pathogens of a number of diseases, including diabetes, nervous system disorders, inflammation, cancer, heart failure, and a number of others. Given its involvement in a number of these pathophysiological processes and disease, this GSK3 glycogen synthase kinase has become a tempting therapeutic target, so that its inhibition may represent a novel therapy for the development of several drugs against several human diseases like type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, bipolar disorder, and cancer. I'm basically just discussing a few of the diseases where by controlling GSK3, we can control these disorders. Diabetes mellitus is the most prevalent metabolic disease affecting more than 400 million people worldwide, and it's feared to become a seventh leading cause of death by 2030. As most of us know, it's characterized by high blood sugar levels caused by either by the deficiency of insulin due to degeneration of insulin producing pancreatic beta cells, which is called as type 1 diabetes, or due to resistance to insulin, where cells basically do not respond to insulin despite being present in enough quantities. This is type 2 diabetes, and this one accounts for major class around 90% of the cases. Insulin basically triggers the uptake and storage of glucose in skeletal muscle, adipose tissue, and liver as glycogen. It converts basically that extra glucose into glycogen via insulin signaling pathway through a complex mechanism. I'm not showing that here. This glycogen synthase kinase, it's an integral component of this insulin signaling pathway because it modulates glycogen synthase. I've already told you this enzyme catalyzes the last and rate limiting step in glycogen biosynthesis. How it basically is an active negative regulator of glycogen synthase. That is the phosphorylation of this glycogen synthase by this enzyme GSK3. It turns off its activity. Thus, the inhibitors of GSK3, they're expected to leave this glycogen synthase in an active state, which can then stimulate the conversion of extra glucose to glycogen. That's mimic the effect of insulin, and hence this have a potential utility for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. And its relation, how its role in Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a chronic multifactorial neurodegenerative disorder defined by progressive memory loss and cognitive impairment. Gradual and insidious cognitive dysfunction develops in AD patients that becomes debilitating as the disease progresses, significantly jeopardizing the patient's life quality, leading to absolute dependence, hospitalization, and inevitability death. At the molecular level, this disease is basically characterized by the presence of neurofibril tangles, insoluble amyloid plaques, basically beta amyloid plaques, and neuronal death. These are basically the major, recognized as major hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. Neurofibril tangles, they're composed basically of hyperphosphorylated forms of a microtubule associated protein called star protein, whereas amyloid beta, that's basically derived from the proteolytic cleavage of beta amyloid precursor protein. These abnormalities subsequently lead to the activation of a cascade, neurotoxic cascades, and various cytoskeletal chains, which eventually cause synaptic dysfunction and neuronal death. Glycogen synthase kinase here plays a leading role in the cascade of these events that culminate in Alzheimer's disease, as this kinase is intimately involved in the learning and memory impairment, in the hyperphosphorylation of this star protein, in the increased production of this amyloid beta from amyloid precursor protein, and also in local cerebral or inflammatory response. Besides, it also reduces acetylcholine synthesis, which has been found in accordance with the cholinergic deficient present in the Alzheimer's disease patients. Moreover, this GSK3 is key mediator of apoptosis, and hence is expected to directly contribute to neuronal loss in Alzheimer's disease. So as a mediator of the Alzheimer's disease, inhibition of GSK3 can prove this an interesting and promising therapeutic strategy for the development of novel disease-modifying therapies for Alzheimer's disease. In fact, some of the GSK3 inhibitors are already in the clinical trials against Alzheimer's disease. Its relation mood disorders. Mood disorders generally refer to a category of psychotic conditions comprising major depressive disorder. Persistent depressive disorder means long-lasting low-grade depression. Bipolar disorder, where a string of manic episodes and then interspersed with depressive episodes. Cyclohymia is a mild form of bipolar disorder, and seasonal affective disorder. Though the pathophysiological mechanisms of mood disorders, they are not clearly unraveled as yet. However, the behavioral studies in rodents, including the exploration of the mechanistic study of therapeutic agents, they have implicated GSK3 as a potential driver of this disease. So the deregulation of GSK3, basically resulting in its overactivation in specific cellular location, pathways, and circuits, it enhances susceptibility to mood disorders, and thus its inhibition comprises an important part of the therapeutic actions of interventions to be used to treat mood disorders. it's depression. So the major depressive disorder that affects around 16% of the world population at any point in their lives is the WHO data. The involvement of GSK3 beta in depression, that's been primarily linked to deficient serotonergic neurotransmission, which is basically observed in the depression patients. Several neuromodulators, such as serotonin, brain-derived growth factor, vascular endothelial growth factors, which are responsible for triggering signaling pathways that regulate this GSK3, means they regulate a particular level of that inhibit, means that thereby regulate this GSK3, they found deficient in depression. And these deficiencies have been hypothesized to result in GSK3 dysfunction in particular cells and signaling pathways. And this deregulated GSK3 in turn induces alteration in diverse cellular functions, including cellular stress response mechanisms, neurogenesis, immune system abnormalities, particularly inflammations, cardiac rhythm, mitochondrial functions, which affected multiple levels, neurotransmitter synthesis, and they were strongly contributing to increase the susceptibility to depression. The nexus between the impaired inhibitory GSK3 regulation with depression, that is further been validated by multiple pharmacological and molecular approach. For instance, the small molecule GSK3 inhibitors they have been shown to exhibit antidepressive effects in various animal models. These results firmly establish the association of GSK3 with depression and thereby validate GSK3 beta as a viable therapeutic target for antidepressant action. GSK3, this abnormal regulation of GSK3 that has also been reported to promote tumorigenesis in some tumor types, including gastrointestinal, pancreatic, ovarian, some leukemia types, and liver cancers and glioblastoma. Increased GSK3 activity has also been detected in several other human cancers, including colorectal cancer, osteosarcoma, renal cell carcinoma, and lung cancer. So the GSK3 beta has thus become a candidate cancer drug target, reinforcing the interest for the development of GSK3 beta inhibitors for the treatment of cancers, especially in case where it's established promoters. One or two of the candidates are already in clinical trials for against the cancer. Besides, the accumulated evidence also implies a gain of function of GSK3 as one of the potential mechanisms of neuroinflammation, mania, Parkinson's disease, ambulatory sclerosis, spinal muscular atrophy, progressive supranuclear palsy, and cardiac hypertrophy. So given its association in a wide range of severe human pathologies, GSK3 has achieved a spotlight status as a potential therapeutic target. So its inhibition has emerged as a key therapeutic area, and intensive efforts are focused on the development of GSK3 inhibitors as valuable candidates for the treatment of GSK3 related disease. These are some of basically the attempts which has already been made. As can be seen, there are diverse, these inhibitors are of diverse chemotypes and having different mechanism of action, and they include compounds from natural sources. They could be small synthetic molecule ATP competitive inhibitors, non-ATP competitive inhibitors, or substrate competitive inhibitors. There's a lot of scope still, and almost every month, one or two functions of this is being disappeared, and almost the number of patents per year that's almost continuously increasing. Just basically illustrate the role that can play, that this enzyme can play in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mushtaq sir. Thank you very much. Thank you for your talk. Dr. Firdaus, are you ready? Dr. Firdaus, are you here?
Yes, I have to unmute him. Please give me a second.
Okay, sir.
Dr. Firdaus has to be unmuted. I hope it is Dr. Firdaus Ahmad Yattu.
No, sir, Dr. Firdaus Ahmad Khan.
Okay. Okay, I'm not able to find him. Just
So he has shared the screen, Dr. Firdaus Ahmed Khan, Department of Physics, GDC.
available? Yeah, I have found him. Yes, please unmute yourself. Dr. Firdaus, are you able to hear me? Dr. Firdaus, can you hear me? Yes, please go ahead and present. Please you are already unmuted, but we are not able to hear you, Dr. Firdaus. Dr. Firdaus, you have unmuted yourself, but we are not able to hear you. There seems to be some issue with your audio.
Firdaus sir. Firdaus sir, can you hear us?
Please raise your hand if you are able to hear us. Yeah, just a minute. Dr. Firdaus, if you are able to hear us, please raise your hand again. I think there is some audio issue. Yeah, he is able to hear us, but we are not able to hear you, though you have been muted already. Yeah, I'll ask you to unmute again. Yeah, please unmute again. Right, can please speak? No, we are not able to hear you again. Try starting your video. Please try to start your video. Put your video on. Yes, can you please speak now? Dr. Yasmin, are you able to hear him?
No, sir, I'm not hearing him.
Yeah, there is some problem with his audio. We have unmuted him. He has also put on his video, but we are not able to hear him. So maybe another person, by the time he fixes his audio, we can have another. Dr. Sabira, are you there? And are you ready to present? Let me unmute Dr. Sabira.
Hello.
Yes, Dr.
Yes,
Sabira, are you there?
Sabira.
Yes.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Are you ready to present?
It will take me 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, please go ahead and make your presentation.
Yes.
That's why I always keep telling the participants to be ready, because those who are scheduled to present, they should remain ready so that we don't waste any time in searching for the presentation.
I'm sharing my screen, sir.
Yes, it's coming. Ayaz Mahmood Dar has started sharing. Is Dr. Ayaz Mahmood Dar sharing on your behalf?
No, sir.
So why is Dr. Ayaz
You
sharing?
can. I don't know, sir.
Dr. Ayaz, please stop sharing your screen.
I'm not able to share it because.
Yeah. Dr. Ayaz is sharing. Let me just a minute. Yeah. Please, you may go ahead and try to share it now.
Okay, sir.
Are you able to share it now?
Yes, I am. It's loading.
Meanwhile, can you please start your topic, what you are going to talk about? You
Okay,
can
sir.
start speaking.
Yeah. The topic of my presentation is genetically modified foods.
Okay. You may start by the time you are able to share.
Okay, sir. So the genetically modified foods are the foods which are derived from the organisms that have been modified through the use of modern biotechnology. Modern biotechnology, or we also call it as recombinant DNA technology or genetic engineering. It mostly involves direct modification of the DNA. And this technique is more precise, making it possible to direct and predict the changes without introducing undesirable traits. It also allows scientists to introduce genes from essentially any organism into a plant. I am not able to share it, sir, so it won't be that meaningful. Just
Sir, also there are only 6 minutes left, sir. Sir, can we conclude the session this time?
yes, I'm not able to share the screen. I don't know what has happened to it.
In that case, you may try to present in the afternoon session. So,
Yes.
Dr. Gul, let's conclude this session then. It's we are only left with 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yes, sir.
So,
Sir, yeah.
Dr. Sabira, would you like to present without making the presentation, without sharing the screen?
Sir, let us present in the afternoon session now.
Please conclude the session so that we can break for lunch.
Yes, sir. Thank you all. Thank you all the participants on behalf of UGC, HRDC, University of Kashmir. I'm thanking all the participants and all the speakers who presented their presentations in this morning session, and especially Dr. Geet Saab, who gave me an opportunity to moderate the session, morning session. I am very thankful to all who presented, who were present in the morning session. It is going to be 1 o'clock. Let us have a lunch break and we'll meet after lunch. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks to you too, Dr. Yasmin Gul, the way you moderated the session very well and conducted it in the most professional manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All participants are requested to be back at 2. And it's usually we see that initially all the participants do not join exactly at 2. They come a little later. So all are requested to please be in time. Thank you. Suhail Saab, end the meeting now.